Linda. Welcome back to this week's podcast. If you were following along last week, we talked about kids and emotions and different ways to help them handle emotions, different ways to kind of handle emotions for yourself, but mainly about kids and emotions and different resources that there are available for your kids when they're having a tough time, especially whenever your spouse is deployed or your partner is deployed. Today, we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics. If you're a military spouse, this is everybody's favorite topic. We are going to talk about PCSing. Timely for us because we're probably getting ready to PCS, even though this will be week 3 since I said we were going to PCS, and we are still waiting on something other than a verbal. Military's favorite expression, right? Hurry up and wait. But regardless of that, we're going to press on, and we're going to talk about PCS tips. Why? Because PCSing can be stressful. It can be one of the most stressful things you deal with outside of a deployment for your spouse. And this is something that we've done quite a few times at this point. I know people that have PCS way more than me, way more than we have, and I picked up some tips from them along the way. So this is what I've got for you. If you're on YouTube, thanks for watching. You'll be able to get a couple visuals that the people on Spotify and iTunes won't get unless you watch the video on Spotify, and I'm still trying to work on that. I think it's just a simple click and upload, but I don't know. A little special sometimes when it comes to things like that. Anyway, so PCSing. So let's start at the beginning. Let's say you have something harder than a verbal saying that you're going to PCS. So now you are all the way ready to start getting ready to move. One of the absolute first things I recommend is get one of these. This is my obnoxious PCS folder. It's bright orange. I can't miss this. For one, orange is one of my favorite colors, but this thing is loud. And even with the white and black, like zebra print or whatever that is on the top, it stands out pretty well. The reason you want to get that is any bright colored folder, that's where you're going to put passports, birth certificates. All the stuff they tell you never to put in one place, you're going to put it all in one place. Why? You don't want to lose it. The problem with PCSing is the orders get misplaced. If you are a nurse, a teacher, real estate agent, massage therapist, anybody that requires a phlebotomist, just because I like that word, anybody that requires a license to do your job, those licenses and a lot of your important paperwork can get misplaced in the shuffle. So you want to have all of that stuff in one place. That way it's a folder you carry with you everywhere you go. It's in your vehicle. If you're like us and you use a camper to PCS, it's in your camper. It is not packed away. It is somewhere that you have easy access to, and as soon as you go looking for it, it is readily available. You can find it quickly. I cannot recommend that enough. That folder has saved us more times than I can count whenever we need things like, hey, what is your kid's social? I'm that parent. I know my spouse's social. I know my social. I don't know my kid's social. I don't. I know their birthdays. I don't know their socials. So whenever you need different information, it's all in that folder. Easy to find. That is my number one PCS tip. Have an obnoxiously colored folder that you put everything in. The second thing we're going to talk about is what type of PCS are you wanting to do? Now, there's multiple kinds of PCS. There's the one, my personal favorite is the let them do all of it, because I cannot stand moving. My second favorite is called a partial ditty move, DITY. It's a do-it-yourself move. And the reason I like a partial ditty is because you can get paid for taking things that you know for a fact you're going to need at your next duty location before the rest of your household goods get there. And then there's the full ditty. If you're one of those people that you want to maximize the amount of money you can make on a move, because they pay you, you get paid for moving. So if you want to make the most money possible and you don't mind packing all your own stuff, then full ditty might be the way to go for you. My wife and I very rarely argue until it's time to move. So that is why we go with a partial ditty, because what we do is we load up our camper with about a week and a half worth of clothing for everybody. We load up dishes. We load if there's books or um, like this last time we moved, I was in school, so we had all of my school stuff. We had the laptops. We had my microphone, anything I needed for school because all my school is online. All of that. So you can load up anything that you might need at your next location. You can load it in your vehicle. You can load it in your camper. If you don't have a camper but you still want to do a partial ditty, you can get one of those pull behind trailers, and you can load that up with whatever you need. If you're doing something like that, you can load up a bed, um, things like that. We tend to stay, like the last time we moved, we stayed at fam camp when we moved here, which is on base camping. We were able to pull our camper up and we were able to stay there until we closed on our house and we could move in, because the camper has beds in it, so it made life easy. Anyway, so you need to decide what type of move you want to do. One of those three. I don't think there's any other way to do it besides those three. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. So we usually go for a partial ditty. We have been very fortunate. I know there are plenty of horror stories out there. I've heard them from friends. One of my friends moved from Alaska to California. Whenever they opened the back of the truck, it was, my stomach dropped looking at it, and it wasn't my stuff. I mean, nothing was secured. They had almost a total loss in their possessions from moving from Alaska to California. I was absolutely heartbroken for them. We have been very fortunate. We have not had that issue. Every time we've moved, we've had really good packers, really good loaders. The people have taken care of our stuff. I think in the 12 years we've been doing this now, I think we've only had 2 things broken. One of them was impressive. One of them was a wooden headboard, and they cracked it right in half. And I still don't know how they managed to do that, but they did. And the other thing was this little plastic clip off of a carpet cleaner. So we've been very fortunate. I know, especially if you're a military spouse or a military family listening to this, I guarantee you probably either have a horror story of your own, or someone that has a horror story and can definitely relate. So because we've had such good luck, we go with a partial ditty. Seriously, I know people that make a lot of money doing full ditties because they load everything into a big moving truck. They go get it weighed. They get to where they're going. And I don't remember how much money it is. You can go on, I think it's Move.mil. I'm pretty sure it's Move.mil. And you can see what the actual payout is per pound. And then because you also get paid mileage. You get paid a certain amount for driving there and back. And then you get your per diem. I think it's like $100 a day per person over a certain age. You get $100. Under a certain age, you get half that. So you get paid for all that. And if you do a partial ditty or full ditty, you can make a lot of money. That is honestly super beneficial when you get to where you're going, because everybody knows moving is expensive. And then when you get to where you're going, you've got deposits, you've got to buy groceries. Groceries are expensive. So those are the different kinds of moves. So you got to decide which type of move you're going to do. Once you decide what kind of move you're going to do, then you have to figure out different things like, do you have pets? Before I get too much further into this, I want to specify this is for a CONUS move. If you are staying stateside, this is CONUS. Few of these things will apply to OCONUS. The orange folder, your obnoxious colored PCS folder, highly recommend, whether it's CONUS or OCONUS. The only OCONUS move that we have done was to Alaska. Why they consider that OCONUS? I think because it's so far away and where we were, and you can still drive there, like if you drive through Canada. So that's the thing that confuses me about it being OCONUS, is it's still connected. But because it's so far away, you're so isolated, and everything up there is so much more expensive, they consider it OCONUS move. So we do have that, but I don't really count that. Even though for that one we did a full ditty, we shipped our car, the whole 9 yards. We still had our obnoxious orange folder, with all of our stuff in it. It made life so much easier. Pets. Specific. So we have 3 pets. We have a dog and 2 cats. Whenever we PCS'd from Arkansas to Georgia, there was no paperwork that we needed to do. Now, whenever we left Alaska with 2 cats, same 2 cats we have now. There was health paperwork we had to do, so you need to make sure you're scheduling that stuff plenty ahead of time. You need to check in with your vet. They have to be up to date on their shots. They have to have, I don't remember what all they had to be up to date on the shots. They had to have a wellness check. I think there was some blood work they had to do to make sure they didn't have any other, like feline leukemia or anything, for obviously for cats. But it depends on the country you're going to. Some countries have this will be a little bit of Oconus, but some countries will have a quarantine period where you have to leave your pet in quarantine for a week or 2 that you have to pay for. But CONUS, just make sure you have your pet's paperwork, make sure they're up to date on the rabies, especially every animal should be up to date on a rabies shot. Rabies is a lot more prevalent than people realize. So make sure that all that's done. Make sure if you are driving with pets, if you're driving with cats, make sure you have a way to do cat litter. Dogs, make sure you have, poop bags. That way whenever take your dog out to the bathroom, it has a place to go to the bathroom. Highly recommend that if you are traveling with pets, stop more often than you think you want to. Whenever we travel with the dog, we usually try to stop every 2 hours minimum. That way everybody can get out and stretch their legs. That's really good. Really at 2 hours is a good window to stop in, because it gives you a chance to get out, go to the restroom, let your dog stretch, get some water, get fuel. If you're towing, like us with a partial D move, we probably need fuel every 2.5 to 3 hours anyway. So stopping at 2 hours, it's fine. Yes, it's going to extend your day a little bit, but at the end, is it really that much of a time lost? I mean, you spend 20, 30 minutes to stretch your legs, let everybody get out, relax a little bit before you get back in the truck or car or whatever. With cats, traveling with cats is different, man. It really is. Whenever we traveled from Alaska, what we did was we had a litter box with a lid on it. We basically got almost like a big Tupperware that was kind of shallow, and it had a lid. And so we could fill that up with litter, put the lid on it, and leave it in the camper while we were traveling. That way, if it slid around, litter didn't go everywhere. And then whenever we would stop, we would get the cats out and let them out in the camper. And the weird thing about cats is, or at least with our cats, once you let them out of the pet carrier, which if you're traveling with cats, please put them in a pet carrier. Cats love to be underneath stuff, especially if they're afraid or if they're in a new spot. So I would hate for you to be traveling and your cat be underneath your seat, something happened, and all of a sudden they're in your lap or in your face. Put them in a pet carrier. It is way less stressful on them to be in a pet carrier than it is just to be out roaming around. Especially if you're traveling with dogs as well. That's just not something you want to do. So do yourself a favor, get a pet carrier, and make everybody's life happier. But they're going to take longer to go to the bathroom than you realize. So maybe don't stop every 2 hours with cats. Maybe stop whenever you're ready to eat, or have a longer break. I know that sounds like, oh my gosh, you're making your cat go forever. You're a terrible person. I mean, no, because they're not going to go to the bathroom as often when they're in the carrier anyway. But they're going to take a long time when they do go. So let them out. Make sure they have litter available. Whenever we traveled, what we would do is we would let them out whenever we stopped to eat or stopped for fuel, because we would take longer breaks for fuel, especially on the trip down from Alaska. Now, whenever we did the drive from Arkansas to Georgia, we only let them out once. It was about a 10-hour drive, and so we drove. Whenever we stopped to eat, we let them out in the camper for a little bit. So we stopped for like an hour. So we stopped, let them out in the camper. They did their thing. Then we loaded back up. We just drove the rest of the way. It made life a lot easier. They didn't pee in the pet carrier or anything like that. They were fine. So make sure that your pets are squared away. They are like, don't just be like, don't get to the day of PCS and then realize, oh crap, I didn't think about the dog or the cats or the goldfish or whatever. How far are you driving? This isn't just for if you have pets. This is period. Like if so, like with us with a partial ditty, we don't mind taking a little bit longer. Like if we're going somewhere, we don't mind turning it into a miniature vacation. If my wife has enough leave saved up, we can take what should be a 3-day drive, because the Air Force only gives you, or the military usually only gives you 8 hours a day driving, and they expect you to hit only drive for 8 hours. Spoiler alert: I've never known anybody that actually followed that, especially if they're only moving a couple states away. But we like to take things and turn it into like a miniature vacation. Like for example, whenever we PCS here, we found this awesome state park in Alabama. We stayed there for a day. It was a super cool park. Whenever we drove down from Alaska, we turned that into like a 3-week trip. We stayed and fished in Valdez with our friends for the 4th of July. Then we drove through and we stopped at Signpost Forest. We stopped in Jasper National Park. We stopped in Glacier National Park. We stayed with my father-in-law in Colorado for a while. We turned it into a thing. And why not? Because that moving is stressful. It's stressful on the kids. They're having to leave their friends, their schools. You're having to leave your friends, your work, whatever. Take a little bit of time right there and just be with your family. Especially if you aren't under a huge time crunch and you can take a little time and make it more relaxing, why wouldn't you? That's what we like to do. We like to take a little bit of time, even if it's just a day. Let's take a day and enjoy it. So you've already decided what kind of PCS you're going to do. You've got your animal squared away. You know how you're going to get there. You know how far away you're going to go. How do you start looking for a house? I like Zillow, but not for the reason you're thinking. I like Zillow because it gives me a lot of information easily. It gives me the good schools, the good scores. I think it's good schools information. It gives me information about the schools that house is zoned for. It tells me how far away different things are. I can be in one website, and I can get the Google Earth image, the street image. I can get a lot of information very quickly from one website. I find, historically speaking, in my experience, the pricing on Zillow is never correct. So don't go on Zillow thinking that a house is going to be one price, because it can be skewed horrendously one way or the other, because it always depends on what the local market says. And the only way you know that it's 100% accurate is if that's what the actual MLS listing is. I can't survive without caffeine, so y'all get to see me drink energy drinks. Do you want to work with a realtor? We have been very, very fortunate the last couple of times we've used a realtor that they've been phenomenal. They had a lot of experience working with military families. Our real estate agent, whenever we left Arkansas, the lady that sold our house is a dear friend of mine still. Her husband's retired military. She absolutely crushed it as a real estate agent. She did so much, made some really good recommendations for us on how to sell our house. And then on the back end of it, whenever we realized that the people we bought the house from kind of shafted us on a couple things and we weren't going to get as much money for the house as we thought, she did things that she didn't have to do to make sure we weren't coming out of pocket too much. Basically what happened was when we got the house appraised, the appraiser said it was a certain square footage. And then whenever we sold the house, it got appraised again. And they realized that the first appraiser measured things and included them in the square footage that did not belong in the square footage of the house. So we literally lost money on the appraisal because the house was smaller than what they said it was. Anyway, so a good real estate agent. Whenever we moved here, the real estate agent here was phenomenal as well. Again, she had a lot of experience working with military families. She didn't even hesitate whenever we told her that most of the houses that we were going to ask her to look at, she was either going to FaceTime us or show us videos, because we had one weekend that we were going to be able to schedule for me to drive out and come look at houses because we just didn't have time. We were both working full time, so it was next to impossible for both of us to come out and look at a house. So she showed us a bunch of houses on FaceTime, drove out, went and looked at our top 4 or 5, and made a decision off of that. And matter of fact, the house that we live in now wasn't even on the market, really. It was a for sale by owner that somebody told her about, and she came and looked at it and was like, I really think y'all will like this house. You just have to be able to look ahead a little bit because it didn't have it didn't have carpet in it. It didn't have the vinyl plank floor. All it had was tile because they were redoing it. And honestly, I'm super glad that we went with this house. It's amazing. I love this house. So if you don't get a good realtor, I'm sorry, but interview them like you would for a job. Ask them how much experience they have working with military families. You don't have to go with the real estate agent the first time you talk to them. You can tell them you're shopping around real estate agents. So talk to other military spouses in the area. I'm sure a lot of them, seems to be a lot of military spouses that are real estate agents. The lady we bought the house from, she's not military, but she did great with us, and she's been a wonderful person. We still stay in contact today, so very thankful for her. But you can interview them, talk to them, ask them how many military families do they sell to. Ask them how many houses they sell a year. You can interview them just like you would anybody else. And why wouldn't you? Why would you go with the first person and whenever you meet them you get a really bad vibe from them? Work with somebody you want to work with. Firearms. Don't think just because you are living in a certain area with less gun restrictions that the area you're going to is just going to be okay with it. So I ran into this a little bit whenever we moved to Maryland. I had a couple firearms that Maryland had some crazy they had some rules about magazine size and stuff like that, and I was unsure if what I had was going to be allowed in Maryland. So there were some questions, but so what did I do? I did my due diligence. I went and read the gun laws in Maryland. I read them for the county we were moving to. Called a local gun range and talked to one of them. People that work at gun ranges, believe it or not, most of them, I shouldn't say most, some of them are very knowledgeable about what they're doing and about the local laws. And so I called, asked a few questions, found out that everything I had was good to go. But do your due diligence. If you have firearms, if you are into sport shooting or hunting or just a gun enthusiast, whatever, do your due diligence. Make sure that you're not going to be breaking any laws when you move somewhere. Make sure that all your firearms are legal. All your firearms should be legal anyway, but just make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. So, besides firearms, that's really the only other thing that you really need to have a big concern about. So, how do we PCS? Basically told you. As soon as we get our RIP, which we're still waiting on, that's another story. As soon as we get our RIP, we start getting organized. We make lists. We make a list of, okay, this is what we know for a fact we're going to need in our next house. We're going to need enough dishes for everybody to have a plate, a bowl, a fork, a knife, a spoon. So we get place settings. We have those set out, which, again, because we move with a camper, we kind of already have. We have stuff. We have camping flatware and dishes and whatnot in the camper. That way everything else in the house can just get packed. But we still make a list. We know we're going to need dishes. We know we're going to need stuff to cook with, cook on. We know we're going to need towels, washcloths, etc. So then once we have that list, then we make a list of, okay, what in the house are we going to need? Chances are I'm not going to need my sewing machine. Chances are, depending on how long we're going to be going, I may not podcast on the road. I'll probably bring it this time anyway, just in case we're gone, just in case we don't get in the house for a little while and I want to keep doing this. That way I have everything I need. But, everybody in my house has a bicycle. We all have mountain bikes, and then I've got my gravel bike. Chances are I'm not going to ride 2 bicycles. So we make that list. Are the kids, do the kids want to bring their soccer ball or volleyball or anything like that. We make a list of stuff people want to bring. We make a list and we put board games on it. So as much as it can be annoying, list can be a lifesaver because now you've got it written down, and and you have to do this before the movers get there. Go through and have everything that you do not want the movers to touch. Either put it in a closet, put it in a vehicle. If you can go ahead and load up and get a moving trailer and load up the trailer with the stuff you do not want the movers to take, do that. Because here's what's going to happen. The movers, the day before you move, the movers are going to show up and they're going to have a person walk through your house. As they're doing that, you need to point out everything you do not want them to move. And then the day they move, make sure they do not pack that stuff. I've had them pack garage door openers. I have had them pack a basket full of owner's manuals that belonged to the house we were renting. That landlord, I kind of don't blame them, but I personally think we were phenomenal people to rent with because we painted the house, we redid the flower beds. Like we don't tear things up. We tend to take care of it like it's our own house. But they held our security deposit until we mailed them back the box full of manuals. So that was a little annoying, especially since it was kind of expensive to mail that back. But we did, and they finally sent us a check for our security deposit. So make sure they're not going to pack the stuff you don't want to pack. Make sure your trash cans are empty. I shouldn't have to say that, and it's not for the reason you think. They will pack trash cans with trash in them. They will also pack recycling cans with recycling in it. So make sure that anything that they're not supposed to pack, they don't pack. You can put it in a room with a big sign on it saying, "Do not pack this room." No guarantees they still won't, but they shouldn't. And you should be okay if you do that. And then I try to stay out of their way while they're packing. I know you'll hear horror stories talking about, oh, well, so-and-so, this person I know had a bunch of stuff stolen from them. I've been pretty fortunate. I haven't had anything stolen. Like, again, the crews are really good. They have been really good for us, so it's not been an issue for me. I usually buy them lunch, either Subway, Wendy's, pizza. I think they get tired of pizza. I've only had one crew that declined because they brought their own food. But I make sure that I have a cooler with water and Gatorade. We're a summertime PCS family, and I've got heavy stuff because I've got a garage gym with a lot of equipment in it. So they see my garage and they already start panicking. So I try to make sure that they know they're taken care of. And then I just kind of hang out. I'm there to answer questions. I try to stay out of their way, but I don't just leave. Like I might leave to go get lunch for them, but I hang around because I want to be able to answer questions, and I need to be able to let them know if something changes while we're there, or if they do something crazy, I need to be able to call TMO and be like, hey, we need a supervisor because something crazy just happened. And then what's going to happen is after they pack, then the next day the loadout crew is going to come. The loadout crew and the packing crew are going to be two separate crews. And the loadout crew, their job is to get everything on that truck in as efficient a manner as possible. And I tell you, the first half of your day is going to take forever because they're trying to get the right stuff loaded in the right place. But after about the first 3 hours of loading, next thing you know, your house is loaded. And then they got 3/4 of it done in the time that it took them to do the first quarter. It can be a little stressful, but just stay out of the way. Be there if they have any questions. But I just try to stay out of the way and just be there if they need me. And then whenever you get to where you're going, again, take however much time you want. Then they usually won't move you in until they usually won't deliver your stuff to you until you are actually in your house. So, like, I know whenever we moved to Arkansas, we closed on our house en route, and they called us. We were actually in Montana, and they called us to say they were going to deliver in 2 days, and We basically had to tell them no, that wasn't going to work. We needed to deliver on this date. And so, yeah, that worked out well because we were in Montana and we're able to get them to deliver like a week later. So communication's key with that. I don't know why my GoPro isn't charging while I'm recording. I may lose video. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so communication's key. And then what you're going to do is once you get there and you start they start unloading your stuff. Make sure you're there to direct traffic. Do not let them rush you. Every time we have unloaded, they have tried to rush us to be so way they could just unload and go. Do not let them rush you. They get paid by the job, which is why they're trying to hurry. So they will give you the bill of lading, which has all the box numbers. Do not let a box go by you until you check it off that it's on your list. And here's why. Once they leave, you're going to have a hard time being like, well, I'm missing 4 boxes. And they're like, well, why didn't you check it that day? We have no idea where it is. Well, if you check it right then, guess what they're going to do? They're going to find those boxes, even if they're back at the warehouse. So do not let them rush you. I don't if you want to get a table, sometimes my wife will just literally sit on the floor with the stuff out in front of her, and as they bring stuff in, she's checking it off. Offload is going to go super quick. Yeah, sorry about that. I had my GoPro plugged in and didn't realize that the power cord was turned off. So sorry, YouTube and Spotify land, for cutting that out at a half hour. If you want to catch the second 20 minutes or so, went into just a little bit more stuff about PCS. And just kind of closed it out. Next week's episode, not really sure what we're going to talk about yet. Again, a lot of it kind of depends on what we hear this week about if we've got this waiver signed or not. But let me know what y'all thought of the episode. Sorry about the video cutting out. Now I know to double check the power cord that it's plugged into. Anyway, cheers.